Welcome to Six Tackles for this week. After a breathtaking opening weekend of finals action, we'll look ahead to week 2. Other matters on the agenda. The judiciary sinks its teeth into Jack Wighton. See what I did there? Is the lure of the Kangaroos jersey still strong? And plenty of Ask Gus as well. Welcome, Gus.
Matthew, how you doing?
The sun has never shone brighter in my world.
Wonderful. I'm glad
So
to hear
warm
it.
and
It's going to get warmer
glorious.
this week, yeah.
30-odd plus in Sydney.
Beautiful,
Yeah.
beautiful. Couple of 3 weeks to go in the finals.
How's your holidays going?
I've got no holidays. I'm working very hard. I've had to race here from Belmore this morning.
Huh.
I've got a lot of work to do.
What are you doing?
A lot of stuff.
Yeah.
A lot of stuff.
An emotional weekend. I rode the emotional roller coaster over the weekend. Pappy, firstly. I had to stop myself from crying.
Really?
Well, he's such a nice bloke.
Yeah.
I mean, you've seen this time after time. People get injured all the time, but he is such a lovely bloke. Oh, how it was awful.
Yeah, it was terrible at the time. Well, you know, I won't say we're immune to it, but we're more used to things like this happening.
Yeah.
And, you know, once you knew what the injury was, you know, I said, well, you know, bones heal.
Yeah,
These
yeah,
NRL
yeah.
players are extremely tough. He'll be back. You know, he's only young. He's 25 years of age. These things happen. We tend to accept. I had terrible injuries in my career. You just tend to accept it, and it's part of the game, and you've got to move on. I understand the emotional side of it because he's been such a battle to get back, and he's such a popular player. He's an exciting player, and to have it happen so soon after coming back was just terrible. I felt sick. We all felt sick. I was watching at home on the lounge. I was crook on the weekend, and I felt really sick for him. But you do that every time one of your players gets injured or anyone's players gets injured. You don't like to see it, and you know, it was terribly bad luck for him and for the Melbourne Storm. But he will be back. These NRL players are but they're a different breed, mate. They're a different breed to normal people. That's what the people who play our game are. Pretty special stuff.
They are. And the great news on the prognosis is, if you haven't caught up with it, it wasn't a compound fracture, firstly, and they're hoping they can get him back for some pre-season and maybe, if everything goes well, round 1. So, thank goodness for that.
Bones heal. Bones heal. They just do. You know, it's broken bones. You know, it happens.
Yeah.
The bad ones are the other sort of injuries where you've got, you know, spinal injuries or, you know, ligament injuries, and they're long-term recoveries. But a broken bone, well, that's just luck of the draw.
Yes. And, the other little emotional bit I'll talk about in a moment. You're going to be back this weekend because we've got to call Warrior Night.
Yes.
Good.
Looking forward to that.
Very good. Let's rip into yes, no.
No. No.
That's the rule.
No. Dear.
Question 1. Phil Gould was yelling at the television in excitement during Sunday's Newcastle-Canberra final.
No. No, I'm a very quiet watcher.
Oh.
A very quiet watcher.
Were you internally yelling?
Yeah, look, everyone in the household was yelling. Everyone was screaming. And we weren't even supporting one team. I didn't care who won, but you felt for either side. You know, I was nervous for both sides, the way the game unfolded. I know it was unbelievably exciting, and you know, the commentators caught the action, and you know, the thrill of what was happening there with the big crowd at Newcastle was certainly coming through into the lounge rooms. I watched it again with the sound turned down and just purely watched the football without all the theatre and all the drama and everything else. And it wasn't a perfect game of rugby league by any stretch. There were a lot of mistakes. There were a lot of misreads in defence. There was some tiredness and fatigue and some poor decision making. And, you know, there were some things there where Newcastle dug themselves a real hole.
Gagai had a shocker in the first half.
Then they lost their halfback, and you're thinking, gee whiz, you know, this big crowd's about to put pressure on. Ponga stands up and does what, you know, we all hoped and wish he would do, and he did. And they were roaring away. They led by 12 and looked like they were going to win by plenty. And all of a sudden thought, well, maybe we've done enough. And the Raiders just refused to give back. And then all of a sudden you found yourself kind of like, well, come on, Raiders, what do you got? You know, and they come back and they try to level the score was brilliant. And then the extra time was exciting. And
How many charge downs for field goals on the weekend?
yeah. I think if we went back and checked them all, there might be a few offside, but you know, it doesn't matter. That's rubber the green. That's just the way it goes. And I think that's the way players are happy with that. to have the game decided by the one that can get one away, regardless. It's kind of like our game's not meant to be perfect, and it wasn't perfect. It was perfect theatre. It was perfect theatre. It was just wonderful, wonderful rugby league entertainment. Big, big crowd, big scoreboard, a lot of excitement, close finish, extra time. Doesn't come any better than that. And for a team like Newcastle that hasn't, came from nowhere in the middle part of the season, the Raiders who have been struggling all year but managed to get themselves into the finals, and there were no losers. I didn't see a loser. I actually sent a text message to Ricky Stewart after the game. I said there was no losers. You lost no fans there. They ran out of time. And for the Knights, they go on. They get to play the Warriors, which is the other fairy tale story of this final series, next weekend in New Zealand, and that's going to be an exciting one too.
Yeah. So you mentioned the word immune, which is quite appropriate because we see so much footy and we're always busy at the ground. I sort of had a little moment there on the weekend with that packed crowd and all the flags, and this is before the game. And then we ran that beautiful piece with Paul Harrigan talking emotionally about what Newcastle means, and I was sort of sitting there thinking, this is really special.
It's a special part of what we do.
Yeah.
It's special, wonderful to be a part of it at any level of the game when you're in games like that. That was just a very, very special afternoon. Like I said, I'm a quiet supporter. I learned a long time ago, like going to the races, not to be cheering if my horse was in front, because in case your mates would want to snip you if you back a winner. So
early crow.
I've become a very, very poker face type sports watcher. It doesn't matter what it is. I cannot show emotion watching the sport.
You weren't a blow-up merchant as a coach either, were you?
Not really, no. I figured you got
with
one.
The odd exception. But like when you're watching the team, you weren't a Bellamy.
No.
Do you have to train yourself not to be
sometimes
a Bellamy?
Sometimes I blew up at the referee.
Oh, yeah. On one notable occasion.
When he gets it wrong. But no, I learned very early in life to be quite detached from it, and it came from the early racing days. Not cheering that I'd back to winner in case someone wanted to snip you.
That's a good one.
So I don't. Yeah. I just become very poker faced with all that.
Yeah.
Very good.
You'd have to be detached to, and I've sort of learned a little bit about this from watching you watch games. You don't pick a lot of stuff up if you're emotionally invested, do you?
No. You miss a lot.
Yeah.
And I look, to be honest, as a coach and as a commentator and all that, I'm not actually watching the ball all the time.
Yeah.
A lot of people are just watching the ball, which is why when they replay it and want to see for an obstruction, people say, what are they looking at? Well, then they'll go back and see it later. Like I've already seen all that. But I'm more watching what happens away from the ball. I read very early in my coaching career, a piece by Michael Jordan, the great basketballer, and talking to him about what he thought made him a good player. People want to know the secret of success. There is no secret, just hard work. But he said that in a game of basketball, what's basketball? 4 12-minute quarters or something like that? That's what they play, 48 minutes in total. He said, I might actually have the ball in my hands or I might be defending the man with the ball. Out of that 48 minutes, maybe 4 minutes in total. He said, if you took a whole snapshot of every time I had the ball or I was defending the bloke with the ball, it's probably 10% of the game. The other 90%, he said, is away from the ball. He said, that's the 90% that made me a champion.
Yep.
And that's what I look for, and that's what I would use to coach. I used to coach what's happening away from the ball and what you're doing off the ball, because that's going to determine whether or not you anticipate or you're in position or you're able to take advantage of or you're able to save if the opposition do something really good. Because that's the part of the game that they lose. It's not so much what's with the ball, it's what's off the ball that's going to make the difference in the end, because 90% of the time, people don't realise that, you should be there, but you're not. But the one time you're needed, they will notice. So you've got to be there all the time. And we coach a lot of that and train a lot of that. So even in commentary, I'm watching what's happening off the ball more than I am actually what's happening with the ball. I've kind of got it's a funny thing, it's an override. The other thing I do is count tackles. I can't not count tackles. I can't watch any game. I can't watch a junior sports game without constantly counting the tackles in my head.
Wow.
It's amazing how many times the referees get it wrong. You've got no idea how often they do
You never get it wrong.
They do a short counter or long. Well, I can't get it wrong because that's all I'm thinking about.
I can't. Really? Why do you do that?
It's the same with...
Was that from when you were playing?
Well, it started with cricket. When I used to bat, I used to count the balls to know whether to get a single on the last ball or, what was coming and, what the bowler might be doing. So, and it carried over into my football because in football, I think in terms of sets of six, when we get the ball in one position, my brain thinks of a set of six straight away. Not one tackle, two tackle, have a look, whatever. It's kind of like my set of six is choreographed in my mind. And so I think in terms of sets of six. So I'm constantly counting the tackles. That's why I hate the zero tackle because I've got to keep remembering to go 0, 0.
That's
zero. Did he call 0 on that? Yeah, that's 1. That's
What
2.
a
6 again.
A lot of players are forgetting the tackle count. Heaps.
It's amazing because we started a halfback academy with some of our young halves, and I went and gave a lecture to them the first night, and I talk about this, about direction, delivery, and play. The three parts of being a playmaker, and the direction part of it, and talk to them about how many of you count tackles when you're on the field, or do you just wait for the referee to put his hand up to say it's fifth tackle? Are you actually know how many tackles you've got left, what you're working for, and where the set of six is going, and what you've got at your disposal at the back end of it? And if we get the ball here, where am I likely to be on tackle 5 and get him a kick option ready, or my tackle 5 run, or whatever? All these crazy things I think about as a coach. But so I can't go and watch. I can't go and watch the kids play junior football without sitting there and counting tackles. That's what I do. I'm counting tackles the whole time, which is why I can sort of be detached from the emotion of it. And when I'm in commentary, that's what I'm doing. I'm counting tackles and I'm watching away from the ball. It's pretty weird, eh? But I can't stop doing it. I cannot stop doing it. I cannot watch a game.
What have you tried to stop doing it? Have you tried?
Well, because sometimes I make myself conscious. I'm counting tackles again. And I'll try not to, but short of going to the bar and getting a beer, I'm just going to count tackles. That's
I'm sure there's some kind of a facility out there that we can help you.
Well,
with this.
it could be a symptom of something far more serious. What do they call it? OCD or something? I could have real problems, but that's what I do. They're just little things. I watch off the ball and count. It's a long answer to whatever your question was.
Very good. A win by the Roosters over the Storm on Friday would be one of their best.
One of their best. They've had some great wins over the years, haven't they? Extraordinary game the other night. Sharks, I think this year were an improvement on last year, but certainly...
You think they were an improvement this year on last year?
I think their finals game was an improvement on this year than on last year. Yeah, I do. I thought they were pretty poor in the finals last year. And it was a game where they had every opportunity to win.
Oh.
The way it unfolded, it's fair to say, and I think they would admit they should have won, but just couldn't get it done. It got to a point where the Roosters must have been thinking, well, it's just not our day. But because they've got that experience and that hard-nosed nature about some of their players, they were just able to hang in there. They were down. Tedesco gets sent to the sin bin. Players are getting injured. You're kind of thinking, well, it's not our day. But they found a way to hang in there and hang in there and hang in there. They didn't play well at all. Their attack was pretty mundane, to be honest.
Yeah, but they were gutsy as.
Well, yeah.
Sandon Smith was playing fullback.
Yeah, Matthew, you're supposed to be gutsy.
Yeah.
You're supposed to be gutsy and you're supposed to not give up. People say we tried hard and we didn't give up. Well, that's a given. That's what you're supposed to do.
But not every team's like that.
No, they're not. But that should be the bare minimum. Mm-hmm. And it's hard sometimes when the result, if you're emotionally attached to the result in the moment, you can make those bad decisions, or it can get on top of you. The crowd gets on top of you, what have you. But Roosters and Raiders were mentally really well prepared for their assignments on the weekend to be playing in front of big, hostile home crowds, and still being behind and be able to hang in there through adversity and come out the other side. Raiders nearly snatched the win. Roosters did. The try that levelled the scores was a fluke, and it was unlucky for Sharks and it was lucky for Roosters. But Sharks left themselves open to that.
Yeah, absolutely. Because
they were kind of protecting a narrow... They'd resigned to themselves that they could just now contain the Roosters and win narrowly. And I think that's why they kicked for goal when they were 4 in front. They missed a couple of goals from in front.
That's right. The goal kicking's cost them the game.
The goal kicking's cost them the game in the end. And the Roosters didn't play great. And with the injuries they've got this weekend, mind you, Storm were terrible. Storm were the worst performers on the weekend.
Well, we'll get a preview of that. But they've got no Swali'i, no Manu.
Yep.
No JWH is suspended, and all the other guys that they've had out for a long time.
Yeah, and I think one of the centres that they would have brought in is a very, very promising young boy called Robert Toyer,
Yes.
who I expected maybe, even though it was a semi-final, to get a debut this week. He's done his ACL last week. So he did his ACL last year in one knee. He's done his ACL in the other knee, playing lower-grade football, which is a real tragedy because he's a super kid, and he's going to be a really, really good player. I think I mentioned to you last year.
You did. Yeah, well, he was in the 19s game, Origin 19s game.
Yeah. And the other boy was Wong.
Siwa Wong.
There's two. They've got some really great kids there, and Siwa Wong's certainly making a name for himself now, isn't he?
All right, we'll talk
but
about it.
If they can manufacture a win, of which they are capable, because they're a professional, of which they are capable, it would certainly be an enormous achievement. The Storm will have something to say about that, I'd imagine.
I've got a nagging feeling they can win on Friday. Just a nagging feeling. Australia will win the 50-over Cricket World Cup, Gus.
No.
Don't like them?
No, mate.
They've pounded South Africa in the first two games, but I have to say, and as a cricket nerd, South Africa are a pretty ordinary side.
Yeah.
Mitch Marsh.
Yeah.
Smith's got to come back in. Stark's got to come back in. Maxwell's got to come back in.
Don't get me wrong. I'm cheering for them. I love.
Cumo's got to come back in.
I know. I'm there. I'm cheering for them. But gee whiz, they're frustrating. I've kind of lost confidence, lost a bit of faith in them.
At 50 over cricket, or just generally?
Just generally.
Why?
I don't know. I don't know.
I reckon they'll win it.
I don't know. Do you?
They're a powerful side.
Yeah. It can be a bit hit and miss, that one day stuff. They seem to rise to the top. I hope they win.
I like 50 over cricket.
I hope they win.
I grew up on 50 over cricket before T20, and I think it's great. It requires much more. What's the word? It's more tactical in that you can't just come out and slog. Do you think the Wallabies will make the World Cup final, Gus?
No.
Based on what?
Well, I'm just asking.
No.
Jeez, they need to find, don't they?
I'm a real Eddie Jones fan. I'm liking what he's doing.
Are you?
Yeah, but I don't think it's going to get us ready for this one.
What are you liking about it?
I'm liking that he's doing it his way, and he's he's changing it up a little bit, and he's bringing in some young fellas, and why hold on to what's not working? He's certainly doing it that way, and and maybe he's got really something up his sleeve. Maybe he sees something in the opposition that this is what he's doing is right. But I'm cheering for them.
I'd like to have seen them beat Georgia by a bit more. No Michael Hooper, but the great news for rugby fans is that Michael Hooper's part of the commentary team.
Oh, is he? Good.
For Stan Sports coverage of the Rugby World Cup, which is looks beautiful over in Paris. And the great news is we'll be there for the Olympics next year.
My next door neighbour's gone to the Rugby World Cup.
Mark Coyne?
No.
Oh, the other one?
On the other side.
Oh.
Yeah. They follow the Wallabies everywhere. They follow the Australian cricket team everywhere, and they follo the Wallabies everywhere.
How good would that be?
That's all they do. They travel the world watching Australian cricket or Australian rugby.
Must be loaded. Do you know what one of my bucket lists is?
Yeah.
Go to an Australian cricket tour of the West Indies.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would just love it.
Would you?
Well, what a wonderful place to go.
Right.
And throw up, they're cricket mad. I mean, obviously they're not as powerful as they were back in the heyday, but gee, that would be fun.
Yeah.
6 weeks in the Windies watching
I wouldn't mind going to a cricket test at Lord's or the Oval. I would love to go to a US Masters or a British Open.
We've got the rights to the Masters. Maybe we can organise you a gig.
What else? I haven't got really too many bucket list things.
You're an American. You reference a lot of American sport. Are you interested in watching it?
When I get the chance, yeah. I used to watch a lot of it.
Right.
I really did watch a lot of it.
Does a Super Bowl appeal to you?
Not going to a Super Bowl. I actually got really disappointed going to an NFL game.
Did you?
I loved it. I used to watch a lot of it, and it wasn't always on. We didn't have cable TV back in them days, so you're kind of waiting for replays and all that. And then I went to New Orleans on a trip away, and I went to the Superdome to see an NFL. I couldn't wait to get there. And it was the most boring start, wait for ads, wait for this. And I left at half time. I was so deflated by it.
Yeah.
I went back to my hotel, sat in the bar. It was on TV live. It was outstanding. Commentary, replays, ads. It was actually the production that I like. And I say this to people, Channel 9 makes rugby league 10 times greater than sometimes it is. It's the theatre and the colour and everything that you do around it, and all the beautiful tape pieces that they do, and the production and the cameramen and the 11 different cameras and all that. When you're at the ground in an NFL, it just went so slow. Everything was so slow.
Because there's nothing to colour in the dead bits
Exactly.
live at the ground.
Exactly.
It's just you and your mates.
Why are they all standing around? They're waiting for the ad break. They're what? They're waiting for the ad break. Seriously? Yeah. And rugby league's now getting like that.
Yeah.
Right? We're waiting for ad breaks if you're live at the ground.
I've got one you'd like to go to, Royal Ascot.
No.
Really?
No. I went to racing in America. I would like to go to Hong Kong just once, just for the theatre of it, or Japan. Maybe go and watch a Japan Cup or something like that.
Maybe you can have a runner.
The US Masters, a British Open, something like that. A cricket test at Lord's or the Oval. I'd like to go and watch.
At Lord's. For the general public, it's very hard to get tickets to a Lord's test because the capacity is only about 35,000.
Yeah, they're not
and
big.
they reckon 20,000 are gone before the.
I've been to the grounds.
Yeah,
I've been to them all, and went and had a look at them, and it looks a lot better on TV than it does when you're there.
I've done a tour of Lord's. It's one of the best things I've ever done.
Was it?
Oh, I loved it. How'd you go?
Still going.
Gus is auctioning one of his horses live during the podcast. Last question. During your glittering career as a player, you were bitten, gouged, and squirrel gripped.
Repeatedly. Repeatedly.
It takes a special person to squirrel grip someone.
Repeatedly.
Why would you squirrel grip someone?
I don't know. But you noticed.
Have you got any? Have you got any noteworthy stories out of these exchanges? No.
There were plenty of them. No, it was standard practice. Punched, gouged, bitten. Yeah, stomped on, tread on your hands, tread on your legs. Oh, yeah. The first, I played in the same era as Fatty and Sterling and them sort. You go and ask them, what it was like, particularly if you're a forward, they used to call it the softening up period, what the early part of the game was like.
We talked about the Broadhurst fight last week.
Yeah, none of us were on calendars back in them days. Broken noses and no teeth and all sorts of things.
So I bring that up, of course.
They cleaned up all that part.
Yes, it was probably better they did. To segue into the Jack Wighton suspension of 3 weeks, I have to say I'm a little surprised. If you find someone guilty of a bite, which they took 23 minutes to do, 3 weeks? I mean, it's a real no-no in the game. The rule book says, and I know you're a big believer in keeping 13 on 13, and I understand that, but the rule book says if there is categoric proof that someone has bitten someone, it is a send-off. The referee decided against the send-off, as did the bunker. But I don't think there was any dispute. There was a bite.
I don't think there's any doubt.
3 weeks?
No, it seems light.
Yeah?
It seems light. As I raised on 100% footy the other night, the treatment of it on the day, I'm happy with the treatment on the day. You make an allegation of biting. You really want to go on with that? Yes, sir, I do. Usually they say that, no, forget about it, get on with it. Yes, sir, I do. Right, it's on report. We'll let them deal with it later. Let's get on with the game. I'm happy with that, right? Rather than a 10-minute sin bin or a send-off or anything like that. Unless they do a Mike Tyson and bite his ear off or something like that. There are different degrees of this sort of thing. But where there is an allegation, let them deal with it after the game. And then I think that the man who makes the allegation should have to go and appear.
That's what I was going to ask.
At the judiciary.
That's got to be part of putting the allegation forward.
Well, I think for the person who is accused, he should be able to meet his accuser. I think he should be able to face his accuser in that judiciary situation.
I agree.
I don't think you can just make the allegation and then walk away from it. I don't agree with that. But I think you should have to. I think the person who is being accused should have the right to have the accuser questioned or interrogated in that respect. But I couldn't understand the send-off in the NRLW game where they actually sent them to the sin bin. And what did she get, 4 weeks? 2 weeks, did she? Yeah.
Which, relative to the length of the season, is...
Well, it was
20%.
20% of the season. 20% of our season would be 6 weeks.
Yeah. I found 3 weeks, especially given what Jack Wighton said last night. Did you hear that?
Yeah.
So they showed him all these different camera angles, and it was put to him, I've got it here, the Judiciary Counsel, Patrick Knowles, told Wighton the 30-year-old Gamble had applied little pressure to the back of his head before the bite. Jack Wighton, well, how many games of rugby league have you played?
Fair enough.
Uh-oh. And he still only got 3 weeks.
Fair enough. That's a man that was condemned to going to the gallows.
Oh, he got off light for that. Yeah. Anyway, how good is it? He was thinking about making himself available for the Kangaroos again. That's the best ever.
I don't think he was.
That's the best ever.
I don't think he was. I think that was a media rubbish. I think they made that up.
I actually, as a little sidelight to that, I don't think Jack Wighton has retired from rep football. He told Brady he didn't want to play this series. I asked Brad yesterday. He said he never told me he's retired from rep football. He said he just didn't feel like he could play this series. So I don't think that he's actually retired full stop. Anyway, 3 weeks. Jack Wighton, he's not going to start. Well, he's going to miss the trip to Vegas for one.
I think players these days put up with pretty much everything, but, the biting, the gouging are the two things that they don't like. They're the two things that you don't like.
Joey, on Freddie and the 8th, actually, which we shot yesterday at Allianz, said he got gouged in a test in 1995 in England by an English player he wouldn't name. He said it was the most frightening experience of his life. He said he got his hand right in there. That's sickening.
Yeah.
What would possess someone to do that?
Yeah.
You were passionate, and I know this has been a bee in your bonnet to a degree, about the amount of leave being afforded to players. I just wanted to, and I'm sure many people have taken note of your comments. So as of 2021, and this segues into the Latrell thing, which we'll address for context, players who have completed 4 pre-seasons or fewer. So that's for younger players. 3 pre-seasons in their career. Yeah? They get an 8-week break, while those who have completed more get a 10-week break. So on 100% footy on Monday, you said, well, the amount of leave they get's ridiculous. And Latrell has made himself unavailable to play for Australia because he needs, we believe, surgery on a hand injury, which he picked up in round 22. No one's ever mentioned it since. So players that have been there for more than 4 pre-seasons get 10 weeks off. Is that a 10-week off season?
Yep.
Right. That's a long time.
Yep.
That must make it. I'm just sort of thinking out loud here. If you have a 10-week break and you're training hard all year, that must make it much harder.
Well,
to get back into the swing.
You work it out. If a World Cup or this what's this representative season we've got coming off finishes at the end of November.
Yeah.
Count 10 weeks from that.
Yeah, well, you're into Feb. Yeah.
December, January, you're into February. So they're trialling in February.
Yeah, that's right.
So you want to say you want to give them a 10-week break.
Yeah.
Look, the thing I'm against is that I don't believe it's in anyone's best interest, the player's best interest or what have you, to have a blanket coverage that this is what you should get on this based on this qualification. There's a couple of reasons for that. We talked about players if they've had fewer than so many off seasons or so many seasons in the league. With contracting these days, with train and trial and full-time training and giving kids full-time training, there are a number of kids that got offered, full-time training as a part of their development, even though they weren't NRL players, even though they weren't going to play NRL that year, but they're getting full-time training, which then you get a couple of seasons of that. All of a sudden, they're qualifying for 10 weeks off, which a lot of them will go and take. And you've got other players that it's not in their best interest to be having 10 weeks off. They can't be left to their own devices. For the development of your team and the culture of your team, the togetherness of your group, and to get the type of work that you need into them, you go and talk to any head coach. Don't talk to me. Don't take my word for it. Go and talk to any head coach in the game. Go and talk to any of the head high performance or strength and conditioning coaches and tell them whether or not it's in the players and the teams and the club's best interest to have a blanket policy that these players, after a period of time, get 10 weeks holiday during the off-season. It's not in their best interest. It's all right to say, and Paul Gallen can say, well, I did it, but Paul Gallen would go and train. Paul Gallen was experienced, and, some players do get to a point in their career where they can do that, and you can trust them, and it's probably in their best interest to have a good break from the game. But not everyone's a 35-year-old player, right? They've got to remember back when they were teenagers and emerging players and 23, 24. And if you're a 24 and you've been a promising kid coming through, you're into your 5th or 6th season of NRL training, and suddenly they want to give you 10 weeks off. Where you're still in development phase at that stage, and 10 weeks off, depending on who you are and the type of personality you've got and what you do with those 10 weeks, can be quite detrimental. Then you throw into the back of it now, we want to have a rep season at the end of every year, which pushes it further and further back. And then what happens is your rep players, they go off to England to play in a World Cup. Oh, I'm going to take me full 10 weeks off. Well, that's fine. We'll see you, at the end of January. They come in, they're underdone because they haven't done anything. It's the Christmas period, New Year's period. They've been on their Kontiki tour or whatever else they want to do. And they come back and all of a sudden they're doing little quad strains, they're doing little calf strains because they're not seasoned for it. Next thing, the trials are amongst them. Well, we can't trial him, he's underdone. So that he doesn't trial, so then he goes straight into the competition without a hit out. Don't talk to me about it. I'm not the expert. I'm just telling you how frustrating it is for every coach and every high-performance manager in the game and how it's not in the player's best interests. The senior player, and they're only thinking about this as some sort of 35-year-old player, the senior player, right, is totally different to everyone else in stages of their career.
But this is what the players wanted.
And some you can.
This is what the players wanted.
This
is the RLPA.
This is the RLPA.
Yeah, but the RLPA represents the players who.
The RLPA does its own business, mate. It doesn't represent all players. It doesn't include all players in the decisions. The players will cop it because they get a benefit out of it. What other job in the world do you get 10 weeks holiday?
You're saying that. You're saying it's
I'm saying
counterproductive.
The policy's based on a 35-year-old player and how he felt at the end of his career. That's what it's based on. Having more time off and more time for this and more time for that, and not having to get bored with going into training every day. And training is there's so much variety in the training these days in what they do, that it's not like it was back then, where players got a bit stale by coming into training every day. And, if you get to the stage of your career where you pick up in your bag and you're dragging to go to training, you're dragging yourself there to do it, and you go and do it, you go and do the work, you'd rather be somewhere else. That's not the mentality for forming policy for future generations. Anyway, don't talk to me. Go and talk to head coaches and go and talk to high performance people.
Well,
about the development of the long-term athlete, about the development of the demands for NRL football these days, the physicality of it, the mentality of it. I just think the players get far too much time off.
Yeah, I just wanted to get a drill down on what the fundamental issue with it is, because you run a football club, and this is clearly a major issue for you.
Frustration doesn't come from me. The frustration comes from coaches and conditioners, the strength and conditioning coaches, and all the other aspects of their training that they've got to do. It's a fairly specialised thing right now. There are so many aspects to their training that they've got to look after. Not to mention prehab and rehab and surgeries and all those sorts of things and different things. There are players that have constantly got to be working on the maintenance of their body because they're getting older and because they've got niggling injuries or had niggling injuries. Their loads have got to be managed, et cetera, et cetera. And some of them, if you say don't come in for 10 weeks, they'll do nothing. They'll do nothing. Nothing. They won't pull on a sand shoe. Nothing. And that's not all of them. Some of them will go away and be diligent and work hard and get themselves and turn up in good shape. Others take a time. They take a lot of time. Back in the old days, we didn't turn up till February. There was no off-season training.
Yeah, you're all working.
Yeah, there was no off-season training. You just turn up in February. Couple of runs, throw the ball around a little bit, get into the trials, play yourself fit, play yourself into condition. That was 40 years ago. It doesn't work like that anymore.
Do these extended off-season leave brackets, are they making it? Are they applying more pressure to clubs to influence players to not play rep football?
No, 100%. 100%. Because you get 3 or 4 years in a row of it. You get 3 or 4 years in a row of it. There are some players, and I won't name it, haven't done an off-season for 3 or 4 years. They're playing NRL football and have not done a concerted off-season for 3 or 4 years.
Because they've been playing rep football.
Because they've been playing rep football. Or because they've been playing rep football. So, or other little things have happened. We had COVID, we had, someone get injuries, a little bit of surgery, someone got weddings, get married, there's all sorts of excuses for time off and all that sort of thing. But go and talk to the coaches, go and talk to the high performance people about what it takes to prepare people for this season, prepare your club. And if you have seasons back to back to back of this where key players are not available for training and qualifying for this 10 weeks comes far too easily because now we are gifting a lot of young players off-season full-time training. You've got to offer the full-time training, otherwise they'll sign for someone else. Oh, well, if you don't give him full-time training, they think this is a magic elixir, this full-time training with the top 30 squad. Some of them get there and can't handle it. You're trying to say to the manager, let us coach the player. But if you want to sign him, Bill down the road said he'll give him full-time training. The parents think that's the thing that has to happen. The manager thinks that's the thing it doesn't. It doesn't. Some kids aren't ready for full-time training. I read a really good article from overseas the other day. It said, don't be in a hurry to play with the big boys. And it's really true, Sometimes I take a little video of the wrestle session or whatever they're doing and say, do you really want your son in that? Playing up against them, doing that. That's not where they belong at this age. And, let us do the development part of it. Anyway.
Yeah, well, look, it's disappointing that we're not going to see Latrell in a Kangaroos jumper. We missed him in an Origin jumper. Campbell Graham is another one. He's not available because of injury management issues, and there's clearly going to be more as the finals progress.
And that's a big thing, like injury management. At the end of the season, the 8 teams that haven't made the finals, right? From the day after the game, they're doing their exit medicals, their exit, and like a young bloke like Jacob Preston, he got suspended for 2 weeks for a hip drop thing, 4 weeks out from the end of the season. He could have come back and played the last 2 games, but he had some shoulder issues. He'd played with needles all year. So we got his surgery done straight away. So he can be back for the first day of training next year, right, which he will be. Probably might have even cost him a win at the back end of the season. He would have been very handy. But so right from the day that they start getting surgeries, right? We're going to get them off send surgeries. Now, that doesn't help their trip to Bali or their trip to Hawaii that they booked, or, taking the family to Disneyland or whatever, because their arm's in a sling or their legs in a boot and all that. So they wanted to put that off for 3 or 4 weeks until they had a bit of a holiday, then come back and have their surgery, then miss half of... you've got to be really strict with what's in the best interest of the player and the recovery, and they're contracted and they've got to do the work. It's as simple as that.
Yeah.
So I don't think that a blanket policy around all this, don't ask me, ask the people that are experts in this, ask the professional coaches and the professional high performance people today, right, about the issues around leave and rep football and all this sort of thing for off seasons and whether or not they can prepare teams, players, individuals and that adequately for the coming season.
Yeah.
You can't. It's all right for the bloke that's been doing it for 10 years, 12 years, and he knows his body and he's a professional, he can do this and that, you can trust him and you can give him the game plan over the phone and he can just slot back in and do his work. But they're a rare breed, mate. They're few and far between.
As
a lot of players who qualify for this is to their detriment.
Well, I sort of didn't realise the rules around it, but 10 weeks, it's a long time.
It's their detriment.
As a fan of the game, and take out the fact that I work in the media, as a fan of the game, it does not, and I'm sure many people.
And they ring the players and they tell them this is the date. Don't you dare come back before that date. Now the players can.
Who does it?
The NRLP ring. NRLP rings them.
Well, the Panthers, didn't the Panthers blokes come back a week early to play in the World Club Challenge at the start of this year?
Dedicated ones do. All right, they'll forego that and come back. Depending on the culture of your club and the individual involved, they will. But there are plenty that, well, if I've got the opportunity to have another holiday, I'll just keep having another holiday.
I just hate the idea.
And what happens is they get to the end of one season, they might have a sore knee or a sore shoulder or what have you, and they think, oh, well, the rest will do it. Good, I'll take me full 10 weeks. I won't worry about that. Then they come back to it, they have 3 runs, and they realize, geez, that knee still hurts, that shoulder still hurts. These are the things that we're trying to avoid the whole time, and then they're further back in what they do. They're behind the 8 ball. It's not good policy, mate. It's not good policy.
Okay. I was just going to say, I don't like the idea that clubs, and the clubs are paying the wages and whatever, but I don't like the idea that there is a policy that is encouraging players to not play rep football. Like, how many stories are there in years gone by of, and you've seen it in Origin, blokes turning up who are injured but don't want to tell anyone because they want to play. Kangaroo tours. Blokes turning up with bad injuries but still want to go. Like, those days are gone.
Well, it's pretty hard to beat the medicals these days. It's pretty hard to beat the screening process.
Sure, but I'm saying, what about the desire of players to play for their country?
Different planet.
Well, if you're a chance to carry a niggling injury and get a test jumper, why wouldn't you do that?
Well, they change.
But do you agree? Do you know what I'm saying?
I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
I know what you're saying, and that's what the reasonable man would expect. But things change when they get into this environment. They get advice from family, they get advice from managers, they get advice from RLPA, they get advice from media, they get advice from social media. They got a lot of coaches, these blokes.
Yeah, I mean, look, and I don't know, Latrell might have a really bad hand injury or whatever, but after everything that's happened with him the last few weeks, I mean, should get out there and play for Australia and carve it up. That would be the best thing for him to do.
You'd think so?
Ask us. Ray asked, the clubs have their own games libraries. Well, I mean, this is all online now. Get some of the boys to watch some old Bulldogs games, 04, round 23, Broncos versus Bulldogs is a must. Still rated as one of the Dogs' greatest performances. Now, off the top of my head, I can't remember it. 2004, they won the comp.
Round 23 would have been close to the end.
Yeah.
Don't know. But the analyzer system that was first introduced to rugby league, it was the greatest coaching tool introduced to the game in all my time in the game. Was the time coding of games to put onto a computer so that we could access information at the click of a mouse. Access information at the click of a mouse and have vision applied to it. So if I wanted to look at a missed tackle that Darren Lockyer made in the game, blah, 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 I would just need to click on that and all of a sudden the vision would come up to it, where previously in my coaching career, I had to spool through tapes and tapes and tapes or remember it and roughly where it was on the tape. So it was the greatest coaching tool ever. So ever since the analyzer's been in, there is a whole library of time-coded vision there that you can readily go back to if you access the database to do it. Mm-hmm. Here, remember the old show Boots and All we had with Andrew Voss, and Andrew Voss used to put that together. Andrew Voss locked himself in the archives of Channel 9. Where are they? Epping somewhere or somewhere?
Oh, they're in some storage facility.
Storage facility. They're still there. Reels and reels and reels and reels of old tapes and VHS tapes and he went back and spooled to find the most remarkable stories and vision from the past. And viewers would write in and say, I remember a try that so-and-so scored. I remember a day so-and-so. And he just locked himself away every summer and went through that. But no one's ever done it. No one's ever really gone back and looked for it. I don't know when they started recording that. So I assume now that everything that happens in our coverage and everything that happens in our game that is of note, we've got instant access to it the way technology is today.
Well, Ray, for your benefit, I'm going to get Jordan to note down Broncos versus Bulldogs. Round 23, 2004, and I will come back.
I'll tell you what. If you do, I'll tell you what to do.
With an overview of the game.
Yeah, I'll tell you what to do. If you key into YouTube and do it, sometimes they come up. There's plenty of old games on YouTube. Plenty of old games going back to when I played back in the 80s. There's plenty of old games there, so they would be on file somewhere if someone's uploaded them onto those sort of platforms.
And while you're at it, Google Manfred Moore.
Threw a ball over the greenstand.
Yeah. Last one for Ask Us. Binksy, if you had to pick a player from any era with not a whole lot of talent, but all the effort and determination, who would it be?
Oh, gee whiz, a lot of them. All the effort and determination. Well, they've all got ability. To say that an NRL player doesn't have ability,
I think he's meaning, he's the player who survived on guts and, sheer will.
Yeah.
What about one in your time as a coach, maybe, or a player?
Yeah. I don't kind of want to embarrass by someone saying that, well, he didn't have any talent, because he did. Saying he had talent, but I think the most recognisable example of that would be a Dallas Johnson, Queenslander, Melbourne Storm player.
Well, there was nothing elaborate about him.
Very effort-based, very top, but a professional in his own right. Yeah. There are a lot of players that make a career on what we would call very limited, natural, skillful ability.
What about Paul Vaughton?
Fatty had skill. I remember one of the first games I ever played against Fatty, might have been his second or third game or first game, chipped over the top and regathered and scored a 35-metre try.
The Fat,
really? He was pretty quick, the Fat.
Yeah.
Yeah, he could move.
But he was all effort.
Right?
He was all effort.
Yeah.
In a Queensland.
Well, yeah. In Queensland, they were renowned for it.
Yeah.
Your Greg Dowlings and all those sort of players and, a real effort. A lot of Origin players were like that. Used to be a player, played for Queensland, played for North Sydney. Gary Larson was a huge effort player. Phenomenal work rate. Shane Webke was a massive effort player. Shane Webke wasn't blessed with speed. He wasn't blessed with skills. He never passed the ball. Shane Webke played with his body.
It was built like a brick shit house. That helped.
Yeah, but he played with his body. He was all effort. He was, all effort. Yeah. Shane Webke. Plenty of them make the most out of very little. And that's the frustrating part, is that sometimes the really talented ones, they don't put the effort in. And, they're very frustrating. And honestly, coaches tend to gravitate towards the ones they can rely on, the ones that will give the effort, even if, you don't want a champion one day and a chump the next. You want the bloke who's reliable and you know what you're going to get.
Six tackles trivia, a somewhat complicated but maybe gettable question for Gus. Since 2016, there have been 4 finals games to go to extra time. Can you name the teams that won a finals game in extra time? So there's been 4 of them, but you need to name the teams that have won them. Are we running out of questions or something? Since 2016...
He's desperate to find something I don't know.
Mate, Jordan's... I don't know...
Jack Littlejohn shook him last week.
Oh, yeah, God. I wish the answer was Jack Littlejohn.
Jack Littlejohn shook him last week. He didn't think that was possible.
That was the best ever. Yeah. Well, I didn't even understand the question, so if you can answer it, you're a genius.
So what they're saying is, since 2016, there have been 4 finals that went to extra time to get a result.
Yes. Who were the winners of those games?
2016.
Can I... It's only 2 clubs. One team's won 3, the other's won 1.
Extra time to get a result.
Well, the most recent one was Sunday.
Yeah. Well, are we counting Sundays?
Counting Sunday.
All right. Yeah. Okay.
So there's one.
Newcastle. Is that the one?
That's the one.
So there's one. There's another team that's won 3.
Yes.
3.
3.
Extra time to get the result. Extra time to get the result. 3.
So you've only got to remember 1.
2016.
Oh, you've only got to remember 1 of the teams, and one of them was last year. One of them was last year.
Did it happen last year?
Yeah.
No. I can't think of it. Rooster.
Bit further north.
Manly.
A long way further north.
Oh. Cowboy.
Yes, Cowboy. Cowboy. Now, the semi-final, so they played the 2015 grand final. The Cowboys beat Brisbane in a semi-final in 2016 in extra time. 26-20, I must have called that. The elimination final of 2017 versus the Sharkies, 15-14.
Yeah, they did. Yeah.
And last year, they beat the Sharkies again, 32-30. That was Val's field goal, wasn't it? Was it a 2-point field goal?
That's right. Yeah. No. Too good.
I think I'll write the questions for the rest of the series.
He was desperate to get something I can't answer.
Fair dinkum. Next time you'll be... Anyway. Round 8 recap, NRLW. The Knights beat... How about that? The Knights beat the Roosters. Top of the table, baby.
They did.
Geez, big weekend for the Knights.
Didn't give them a look in. That home crowd. The girls responded, didn't they? They're a very good team.
Oh, very good. The Broncos, well, they edged out the Tigers in a very hard-fought game. There was that... There was the first derby between Cronulla and the Dragons. Dragons were right in it early, but the Sharkies got there in the end. The Raiders and the Titans also kept their respective finals hopes alive with wins over the Cowboys and the Eels, respectively, and they'll play each other this weekend in the final match of the season. Tiger Knight, Thursday night footy here on 7:45 p.m.
Knights are flying, aren't they?
Absolutely. Roosters Cowboys, Netstrata Jubilee Stadium, part of a double header. That one's at 1 o'clock.
Rooster to bounce back.
Yep, 3:15 p.m. Dragons Broncos.
Bronco.
Sunday, Eels Sharks, GIO Stadium, Canberra.
Shark wins.
Saturday, 3:30 p.m. Raiders Titans.
Raider wins.
All right. NRLW Weekly too for a detailed look at all the NRLW news with Ruan and Marley, but it is very congested there for the final place inside the 4. Finals week 2. Thanks to our mates at Bluebet. What are you really gambling with? Free and confidential support, gamblinghelponline.org.au. Friday night footy from Amy Park. Headed down there. Very excited to be going. The Storm are $1.26 on the back of a shocker against the Broncos. Now, the Broncos smashed them, let's be honest. They absolutely smashed them. They're going home. Now, I just want to have a look at the teams here because there's a few that got knocked around. So, Marianne Seve stays in the centres, but Tonga Mapea's out. Justin Olam is back. Xavier Coates doesn't come up, but Remus Smith comes back in with all his experience. The forward pack's largely unchanged. For the Roosters, now, I've been wondering what's happened to Paul Momirovski. He's in the side. Where's he been?
I don't think he'll play.
Oh. Who's going to play? Hutchison, White, Dr. Clay, Turpin, Brown on the bench.
I think Siwa Wong might play in the centres. Just
no,
not got no
something.
reason to say it. I just think so.
Alan Katzman heard that, did he?
No.
So Momirovski and Allen have been named in the centres. Jackson Polar has come in from the Clouds as well.
I think Momirovski would have to do a miracle to play. He's been injured, I'm pretty sure.
Oh, has he been hurt?
I think
Is
so.
that where he's been? Right.
They might be racing the clock to get him right.
All right.
I don't know.
Anyway, $1.26, $3.90. The Roosters. I know they got heaps out.
Yeah, well, I'm not sure the Storm are going well enough to be, $1.26 against anyone. It was, and don't take anything away from the Broncos. The Broncos absolutely obliterated them with fast-moving defence. They really found their mojo and their aggressiveness in defence, and they really shut the Storm down. And the Storm panicked like I've never seen them panic before. They're always pretty resilient and pretty calm and controlled, and they can handle sort of hostile environments. The Storm were just never in that game the other night. Not for a minute were they in that game. You're kind of saying, well, they'll wake up in a minute. They didn't.
Harry Grant was rushed into a few silly things that you don't normally see.
No. The model, over the years they've had those great playmakers and they put around some real tradesmen around them. Doesn't mean the same model's going to work forever. And right at the moment they're just recreating themselves. They dropped Justin Olam and Remus Smith.
I reckon it was about 6 weeks ago.
Yeah, about 6 weeks ago, and I don't know whether, not that I would ever question anyone like Craig Bellamy, and the coach knows best, but I'm wondering whether or not that was a decision that was going to come back to bite them later on. And I see that these two have been put back in the side this week. Whether it's a week too late, I don't know. We're anticipating Melbourne Storm won't do that again. They'll be harder to beat at home, and the Roosters have got injury problems and come through that hard game the other night. I think it'll be closer than that. You probably can't tip anything but the Storm, but you're going on trust that the great coach will get them up for that particular performance. But I would not, in any way, shape or form, doubt that the Roosters will be capable of coming up again and putting in a spirited performance. And they can. The Storm aren't going good.
No.
Yeah, so...
Verdict?
Well, Storm, for the sake of a tip, but I'm really looking forward to watching that game. I'm looking forward to see if the Roosters can beat them. I just think the Storm are on tilt at the moment.
Yeah. Such a fascinating...
I expected much better against the Bronco last week.
Yeah.
I expected much better.
I think everyone did.
I said I thought Bronco would win, but I thought it would be very tight and be a real testing material for Broncos. But they came through it with flying colours. I rated them 9.5 out of 10, the best of any team on the weekend. I thought Panthers were professional, played a little within themselves, did what they had to do, contained their opposition. They were meticulous in what they did. There was nothing wrong with their performance, but the whole day it smacked of they've got another gear. And every time they got their opportunity, they sprung to life and got it, but they just kept the Warrior contained, and they were happy to do that. Beat them convincingly on the scoreboard, but I felt like the Panthers had another gear. Broncos, I felt like they let it all out. That was bang. It was
pretty good, though.
It is, and now they get a fortnight break and they can do it again.
And they're a good side.
Yeah, but I think it would have been a bit of a important moment for the team and the coach to go out and perform like that and put aside the Storm the way they did. That was the game you've been looking for. That's the one. If you can see the difference between that and what they were doing 6 weeks ago, when I was saying I doubt whether at that level yet, you can see the difference between the two.
Yeah, they do.
That's what I was talking about. That was the game you were looking for.
Yeah,
that was the one.
Can I just say too, with all the talk about Coach of the Year and stuff, and rightly so, Andrew Webster. Geez, Kevin Walters deserves some credit.
Brilliant
What an
stuff.
unbelievable
Brilliant.
job he's
Well,
done with that
they all
team.
do. They've all done. Mate, it's hard work. They've all done a good job. Yeah. So I think but.
Well, everyone. You know what? Everyone was saying Kevin Walters can't coach. Well, who's got egg on their face now?
Well, all those that were saying he couldn't coach.
Correct.
Yeah.
Now, does your little fairy have any information on Sean Johnson?
No. Gee, I think he's doubtful.
Are you prepared to say if he doesn't play, Newcastle win?
Yeah.
Anyway, $1.53 Warriors, 9 to 250.
I hope he plays because the Warriors deserve to be at full strength. The Warriors campaign starts this week. Yeah, it was hard for them last week. Going out to Penrith without their two halves. You remember Metcalf didn't play either. And Tamara Martin hasn't played for ages. And they didn't shirk their task. They tried. They were tried, but resigned to the fact that very early in the game they weren't going to win it. But they kept trying, and Penrith treated them with a lot of respect and went professionally about their business and beat them by the score. They beat them, but they could have beat them by a lot more. But I got the feeling this was just one game Warriors had to get through to get back to that home semi-final. Their finals campaign starts this weekend. It starts this week, not last week.
Okay.
That's how I would view it.
With respect to Newcastle, we know Jackson Hastings is out, but they get a fully fit Adam Clune back in.
Yeah, well,
he's been excellent.
I don't lose anything there.
And Fitzgibbon out of the second row. Dylan Lucas comes in to start the bench.
This will be a phenomenal game. Phenomenal game.
They're going, so, by the way, the club record is 11 in a row for Newcastle. They could equal it this week.
This is a phenomenal game. I can't wait for this one. This is phenomenal. These two games on the weekend will be terrific, but for different reasons. You've got the two old stages, Storm and Roosters. You've got these two fairy tale ones, Warriors and Knights.
Winner plays Brisbane, by the way.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that game Saturday. Friday, Storm, Roosters. We've seen them go around plenty of times, and it'll still be exciting just to see whether or not the Storm can rebound and the Roosters can keep marching on with this, return to form at the back end of the year, and the injuries they've got to overcome. And just, I give the Roosters a good chance in that one. They can do it. Their forwards, they get their forwards right. It's not as though Melbourne Storm are brilliant in the back line that are going to tear the Roosters apart. They've just got to tackle, and I think the forward battle Roosters can win. I'm nearly hedging towards.
We're going back to the other game now.
Yeah. Anyway, Warriors and Knights. I want to see Warriors win. I think it'd be great for the game and great for the country, and that's nothing against the Knights. I just think the Knights had their moment last week in Newcastle, which was wonderful. I think the Warriors, after the season they've had, would deserve one in front of a big home crowd after everything they've been through, and I've got some intimate knowledge of that, and everything they've been through to get the club to do this in front of a big home finals crowd. I'm cheering. I'm cheering for both of them. But I think it'd be wonderful for the game if Warrior won.
Okay.
I don't know.
It's all on Johnson.
I think Newcastle can win.
Oh, absolutely they can win.
Yeah.
So, they've almost just got to play Johnson, haven't they?
Well, if he's no good, he's no good. Mate, it's not... You can play with any injury above the waist. Below the waist, it's hard to play with an injury, particularly in that position. He relies on his speed and his kicking, and he's got,
Gee, it's terrible timing.
Calf injury is it's a niggly, annoying injury, and they don't repair that quickly, to be honest. If he did it in the lead up to last week's game, they're normally 3 to 4 weeks of very careful rehab to get them right. It's not, depending,
Well, if he gets there, he's not going to be 100%.
I can't see how he is. I really can't. Newcastle can win that. They really can.
All right, so you're leaning towards Melbourne Penrith grand final qualifier, but wouldn't be surprised if the Roosters can upset them. And you're saying Warriors to play Brisbane, but it's toss of the coin. It's going to be fantastic viewing. You can watch it, of course, live and free here on 9 across the weekend. Friday night footy from 7:30, and it's an afternoon game Saturday, 4 o'clock kickoff, and looking forward to calling both of those.
Yep.
Thanks, Gus.
Thank you, Matthew.
Enjoy the weekend. All the NRL and NRLW here on Nine's Wide Border Sports. We'll be back for 6 Tackles with Gus next week. Ta-da!
What are you really gambling with? For free and confidential support, call the number on the screen or visit the website.
With the finals around the corner, NRL on 9 has you covered.
From match highlights, press conferences, and don't forget, Fred in the 8.
Of course.
NRL on 9 has you covered for everything. One-stop shop.
Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss a moment.